And joining us in the studio is Dave Pickersgill from CAMRA.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Fantastic. So I said just before the tune that refused to stop that you were coming in to talk about pubs being turned into assets of community value. What on earth is an asset of community value?
Asset of community value, an ACV for the jargon, introduced by the government in 2011 as part of the Localism Act. And basically, a group of local residents or local organisation can apply to the local authority, in our case Sheffield City Council, to list an asset. An asset could be a duck pond, it could be a pub, it could be City Hall, it could be this building. An asset which furthers the community's social well-being or social interests, which is a bit of a vague term.
Yeah.
So I'm fully expecting all the Sheffield United supporters in town to list Bramall Lane, or to submit Bramall Lane as an ACV.
Seems perfectly
They would
reasonable.
claim it as a community asset,
Yeah.
as we would claim that various pubs in Sheffield are community assets.
I think if somebody came along and suggested knocking down Bramall Lane and making a car park there, it would be a valid claim that it's an asset of community value and leave it alone.
I mean, Bramall Lane, as an example, it's the oldest sporting ground in the UK.
Yeah.
It is an asset of community value. It's a historical asset.
Was it where the first ever football cup in the world happened, the Udan Cup in 1867?
It was at Bramall Lane was the first football cup, the Udall Cup, and the first football match was actually at Sandygate in Crosspool, which was Sheffield FC against Hallam.
And that's still there too.
And that's still there, but there's an interesting tale about that. The rules of football were actually formulated before the match. Hallam were playing Sheffield FC. Previously, they'd each had their own separate, different club rules. So the rules had to be written. They had to agree them. So the first rules of football were actually written in the Plough Inn, directly opposite Sandygate,
which
home
we'll come to later.
FC, which we will come to later.
Yeah. So we were talking about assets of community values and the idea of turning pubs into them. Has that happened already? Have any already been turned into ACVs?
Nationwide, assets of community value only occur in England, but nationwide there's just over 2,000 pubs listed, CAMRA thinks, at the moment, which is quite a fair number. Initially, they were nominated by local community groups. The first ACV in Sheffield was the Castle Inn in Bolsterston, which it actually closed for a short period in early 2014. A local group, at very short notice, put in an application and it became an ACV in May 2014. The second pub in Sheffield to be listed was the Plough in Crosspool, which again we'll talk about later. That was about a year ago, June 2015. Sheffield District CAMRA, we've nominated a number of pubs. Initially we were unsuccessful, but this year we've actually had 5 successful nominations in a row, which is great. So the 3 Tons was the first. 3 Tons on Silver Street Head, if you know it. Yeah,
the one with a very, very narrow edge.
The one with a very narrow edge, wedge-shaped is the usual term. That was quite a successful application. The landlady there, Kate Major, actually is chair of Sheffield CAMRA at the moment. So we did it together and went in, and that was successful. Cremorne on London Road, the Castle in Bradway, and the last two are the 2 Sheffield pubs that are on the CAMRA National Inventory of Pub Interiors. That's the Bath Hotel and the Sheffield Tap. So we've had 5 successful applications in Sheffield in a row. We've currently got 1 application at the moment with the City Council, the University Arms, which is an interesting one.
There's a big issue around that.
There's a bit of an issue around that. University Arms, originally built as the vicarage for St George's Church, the big church near the university. That was the vicarage, a very large vicarage. I'm told by my brother-in-law, who actually is a vicar, if you have a vicarage, it has to have at least 4 bedrooms. So there's always a bedroom for the bishop to stay when he wishes to stay, always spare. And obviously 2 bedrooms for the children, boys in one and girls in the other.
Of course.
If the bishop lives in the cathedral, it's not that long a walk to St George's, is it?
This is the Church of England.
He can get the tram.
In Victorian times.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, the University Arms, originally the vicarage for St George's Church, became the University Staff Club in the 1920s, Club 197, which some of our older listeners may remember.
Remember that, yeah.
2007 it became a pub, and since 2010 it's been in every national CAMRA good beer guide. So obviously a well-respected pub, which is liked by the community, which gets the votes to get in the Good Beer Guide, and for 6-7 years in a row that is very good. I also know, I don't think it's telling any secrets, it will be in the 2017 Good Beer Guide as well, which is published in mid-September.
Exclusive.
So University Arms, well respected pub, it was the staff club. The university, we think, are sort of missing a trick here. It's a historic building. The staff would have had many academic discussions, over a beer, over a drink, after work and the like. There's a pub in Cambridge, the Eagle. They've got a blue plaque outside the pub which talks about Francis Crick and James Watson announcing the discovery of DNA in that pub in 1953. Similar stuff must have happened in the university
I wonder
staff
if
club.
The nature of Buckminster Fullerene would have been discussed over.
It could easily have been.
Yeah.
And you think of the academics that have worked at Sheffield University, things like that will have happened. The university should be marketing it, publishing it as part of the heritage and the historic history of the university.
So I'm sorry for
instead.
Yeah.
So if you list property as being
an ACV,
an ACV, why would you do that? Why
would you do it? Well, first of all, it's good publicity for the institution. I mean, if I was a licensee and I had a pub and people saying to me and said we want to make it an ACV, I'd say great, go for it, because
Right.
it's a big tick. It's actually people going out of their way giving you that accolade, if you like.
Yeah.
As I say, there's about 2,000 pubs nationwide. The other side of it is if something's listed as an ACV, you have to get, for change of use, you have to get planning permission.
Right.
Whereas if a pub is not listed as an ACV and you want to change it, for example, into a retail outlet,
Yeah.
a convenience store,
Right.
you want to change it into a retail outlet, convenience store, a shop, you don't need planning permission to actually make that change. You can just do it.
And so how
which
does
has happened with a lot of pubs nationwide.
And does this directly relate to the University Arms?
Right,
And what
the
University
University Arms brought out last year what they called the University Master Plan, which was a series of options for the university particularly developing their property estate over the next 15, 20 years. A series of options, glossy booklet, website, the lot, and they ask for responses. The Hounsfield Road block that the University Arms is in, they put forward 3 different options for that block. 2 of them, you can see on the picture, the University Arms is still there. And the third one, it's a tower block.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Right. So 3 options for that area. 2 of them retain the University Arms. The third one, it's just not there. It's replaced by a tower block. They had a consultation, and interestingly, the document the university brought out to summarise the responses, the university said the potential removal of the University Arms was the single most mentioned issue. There was virtually no support for options 2 and 3 for the Hounsfield area, primarily because of the loss of the University Arms. So they consulted, they got responses. Responses said, leave the University Arms as it is. So what did the university do? We put in an ACV application, and a couple of weeks ago we got a 7-page letter.
And there's the sound of the letter now.
There's a 7-page letter from a company called Pinsent Masons, who I've never heard of.
It's quite fine print as well.
It's quite fine print.
There's lots on it.
There's lots on it.
Lots of bold writing.
Company called Pinsent Masons, who we had a look, and who are these people? Pinsent Masons are a legal company. They're in the top 100 legal companies in the world, apparently. They employ 2,500 people. They've got offices in Manchester, Leeds and Liverpool, and Manchester, Leeds and London. So the university, obviously, for some reason known only to themselves, do not want the University Arms to become an ACV.
Interesting.
So we obviously sent a 5-page letter back to Sheffield City Council last week. We were given 7 days to reply. We sent a 5-page letter back, and it's now back with Sheffield City Council. They have to make a decision. They're supposed to make a decision within 8 weeks of the original submission, but they've actually extended the period because of the objection from the University of Sheffield. So the situation at the moment with the University Arms, it's been a successful pub for a number of years. Previous to that, it was the staff club. It's got historic interest. It's an interesting place. It's in the Good Beer Guide. We put in for an asset of community value submission. The university obviously don't want it to happen. We can only surmise the university would like to demolish it, but that's a surmise.
So it seems to be holding on to the option, doesn't it?
They certainly don't want
so this is quite
the options.
Quite a clash of the titans, the University of Sheffield versus CAMRA.
It's the University of Sheffield, one of the biggest universities in the world, employing a large legal company spending students' tuition fees on the letter we got last week. We're a voluntary organisation. We haven't got any money. It's a big delay, David and Goliath situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're quite interested how the council will respond to this one.
Interesting. And are there other kind of things going on? So we mentioned the Plough and Cross pool earlier.
The Plough and Cross pool, that was it was a tenant. Some of your listeners will know it. It was a tenants' pub for many years. There's been a pub on the site. I think the phrase is since time immemorial. It started off as a beer house and developed into a pub in Victorian times. Had a bit of a rebuild early in the last century. It was a tenants' pub until the 1960s. Whitbread took over Sheffield-based tenants. 2003, Enterprise Inns took it on. And looking at the building, we don't think Enterprise has spent any money on it since then. The windows, the wooden window frames are, I reckon you could push your finger through if you tried. I went up last week and had a look at it, and I think Enterprise have just left it to rot, but that's a sort of I'm surmising. The pub closed briefly last year, 2015. A local community group, not CAMRA, got an asset ACV status from Sheffield City Council. They obviously wanted it to remain. Enterprise Inns closed the building. They leased it to Sainsbury's back in last summer 2015. Sainsbury's on 2nd of August this year, peak holiday period, submitted a planning application to turn the pub into a convenience store. The only reason they have to submit a planning application, as we mentioned earlier, is because it has ACV status. Deadline for responses on Sheffield City Council's website is the 24th of August, so which is a couple of weeks away. I looked this morning. All the comments that have gone in so far are objections. There's many reasons for this. The planning application, having read it earlier this week, I don't think it's particularly well put together. There's various mistakes on it, and on certain of the comments, they can't even get the name of the road correct. Sundygate Road and Sundygate Lane seem to be interchangeable in the planning application, which is not a good sign.
Yeah.
They make a suggestion that an alternative pub for people to visit is the Hallamshire Golf Club, which I understand has got a 4-figure joining fee, and costs, according to their website, about £40 for a round of golf, so it's not really a viable option. There's increased traffic. There'll be all sorts of things they just haven't taken into account. But the key thing that I don't think Sainsbury's, at least I hope Sainsbury's weren't aware of, is the heritage, sporting heritage of the Plough. As mentioned earlier, it was the place where the first rules of football were written. Mm-hmm. If it had been in any other country, it would have a blue plaque on it. It would be a tourist attraction. It would be a football museum. It would be a revered site. You'd have tourist trips there every day. This is the UK. We obviously don't do these things properly. But it's adjacent to the ground of Hallam FC, Sandygate. That's the second oldest football club in the world. The oldest is Sheffield FC. The first game was next to it. The rules of football were written. There's all sorts of things over the last 150 years linking football and cricket, Hallam Cricket Club, to the Plough. If the right person got hold of the Plough, they would, well, I think they should, well, I won't say they should, but they could turn it into a football museum. We need places to put items like the Udall Cup that was mentioned earlier. Turn it into a football museum, have a community bar, perhaps even go for residential upstairs, or make the museum upstairs and the bar downstairs. There's things that could be done with that place with the right owner and the right backing.
You've given me ideas now. I think
there's lots of ideas.
This radio lark.
There's lots of things can happen to it. Anyway, the Plough Sainsbury's, the pub is owned by Enterprise. Sainsbury's have put in a planning application. We will be putting in a formal objection. It's been drafted at the moment. I'm sure people are sort of looking at it. We'll put in a formal objection. There's lots of objections going in already. There's lots of reasons it shouldn't become a shop. Cool. I mean, do we need another shop in Crosspool just there? Probably not. There's all the traffic, there's all the mistakes in the planning, and there's also the bigger football heritage issue, which if Sheffield is serious about being a tourist destination, beer tourism, football tourism, they almost go together. I mean, it's sort of...
You would think, wouldn't you?
You would think. I mean, you could have... you could use it as residential. You could have your tourists staying there, staying in the museum, going around the pubs. Absolutely brilliant.
We're running out of time, so we've got time just to squeeze in. You wanted to mention your beer mats.
I did. In October, October 19th to 22nd, we've got the 42nd annual Sheffield Beer Festival at Kelham Island Museum. persuaded a number of local breweries and taxi companies and the like to sponsor some beer mats for us, and we got 90,000 printed. Okay, there are 13 different ones around the city.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible to collect a whole full set of 13 for your textologists out there. Textologist is a beer mat collector.
Right.
So it is possible to collect a full set of 13 simply by visiting lots of pubs. But we thought it'd be quite nice to put a full set on eBay with the money, the takings going to the festival charity with Sheffield Children's Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put 3 sets up. Put 1 set up in July. I put a starting price of £4.95 on it, and 13 beer mats went for £45.
Wow.
Which is really good. The second set is now available on eBay. There's been 120 views in 3 days, and it runs out in about a week. There's a couple of bids in already, but hopefully that will beat £45. And the third and final one will be up in September, just for the beer festival. But that's just a bit of, I don't know, a bit of publicity for the beer festival. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And those of you Pokemon Go minded people out there, just go and collect them all. You know, go to all the pubs, find them all, and they can see them in beer matters. Yeah, kids. Yeah. All you 13-year-olds listening, go to pubs.
Go to pubs and collect 13 beer mats. And Sheffield CAMRA, we produce Beer Matters, which is our monthly magazine, which is available throughout the city and wider. And if you want to know more about Sheffield CAMRA, the easiest thing to do is simply Google Sheffield CAMRA.